10 years. Feels like a long time, and that's because it is, but in the grand scheme of things, it also doesn't. Especially when you compare it to, say, the length of, I don't know how long NASCAR has been around, with it celebrating its 75th anniversary season this year. For context, 10 years ago, we were just introducing ourselves to the Generation 6 NASCAR Cup Series stock car, with some complaints here and there from the drivers that NASCAR didn't necessarily want to hear about, and the fans not necessarily liking the racing it was producing at first. And boy, how we were spoiled the following year with probably the best season of Gen 6 to ever exist, and also probably one of the last great seasons prior to, well, last year, despite the changes in the point standings. But when it comes to other things outside of racing, but well, I mean, can't really say outside of racing, but like outside of real life racing, I should say. 10 years is a very long time. 10 years ago, I was still using a hand me down PC that had Windows 7 on it. I was going back and forth between my two divorced parents. And I was still in high school in my junior year. But another thing that occurred 10 years ago was the start, not necessarily the release, but the start of what would lead into eventually becoming the NSCA as it is today, with a few drivers still racing in it that were around 10 years ago. I'm, of course, talking about the old NASCAR Anthro Racing Series car sets that I made between 2013 and 2016. Or, well, really 2013 and 2015, but that was the original season designations for the 4 car sets that made for that. The reason why I'm not necessarily celebrating anything involving the NASCAR Verizon Cup Series from 12 years ago in 2011 was A, I missed that deadline by 2 years already by now, before at least its 10th anniversary, and B, I've only recently started re-adding, names and whatnot to the history books that existed back then. At least the ones that were real life drivers that I was, just throwing in there to fill the field. So, more specifically, Friday, March 1st, 2013, on the Twokinds forums, I had posted this post right here. And while the images have long since disappeared, mainly because Image Shack removed one of the images and or DMR no longer exists, sadly, I had started what was originally called the Twokinds Carset. The reason why it was called the Twokinds Carset was because of the fact that characters from the Twokinds webcomic were originally going to be the only drivers in this little miniature set for what was at the time the recently released 2013 Bullring Gen6 Cup mod. Man, how much the time has flown by. So the first 2 cars were for, well, myself in a number 19 car, and the main character of the Twokinds webcomic, Trace Legacy, in a number 4 car sponsored by the webcomic. And it expanded from there. So much so that it eventually included a few other members of the forum. And then it expanded into just a full-on series car set. And that's when it became the Anthro Racing Series. At the time, I believe I had pinched it kind of in between the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series, or as it was then known as the Nationwide Series. It uses the Cup Series cars, and for the first 2 seasons at least, the Cup Series contingency sets, but it could feature drivers from outside the Cup Series, even if they weren't necessarily in. It was a weird time for what I was doing. I mean, I had James Hinchcliffe driving Danica Patrick's number 10 car, I believe, at one point. I think in 2014 specifically. So, yeah, it was a weird time for me and whatnot, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. In some ways, I still haven't. But I kind of wanted to go back and do a video explaining the history of how everything came to be and how everything became what is now the NSCA Fastenal Cup Series. So, expanding upon the whole start of this, where I was explaining the history of the 2013 Anthro Racing Series Carset, I eventually just started running races with it and whatnot. And then I decided, I'm going to do a whole season of this. Resume doing a whole mock series type thing like I did with the Navara Verizon Cup Series car sets I had made, and had, I believe at that point, lost access to, uh, at least for the 2013 set, due to a computer failure for the laptop that set was on. And I still, to this day, have not recovered. I think much. I think I only have I don't even know how many cars from 2013 that I have now. I know I've not recovered the full set because it's kind of impossible to, which is kind of sad. But what are you gonna do? Anyways, but for the 2013 set, as I was expanding it, I not only expanded it to, a couple of the fellow forum members of the Twokinds forum, but also expanded it into the NR2003 community as well. Hey, I have a new series. Want to join in? Have your driver compete? As field fillers. Wow, try saying that 5 times fast. Also threw in some real life drivers and also some original characters as well, including a couple of very prominent characters of mine that are, one of which has probably been my most historic driver that I have for an original character. That being John Mullen. His story, or at least his full NSCA career, will come at a later point once I've figured out the more fine details. Because I do want to do kind of like a whole retrospective of the lore or history, whatever you want to call it, of the NSCA proper. But for now, this is more of the whole behind the scenes of how it came to be type thing. So, I was doing this car set, I was running the series, running races and whatnot, and it's now January 2014. I've just completed the 2013 season. Where do I go? Where do I go from here? Make a 2014 update to the car set, do it all again. And then again for 2015. And again for 2016. Although those last 2 sets both happened in late 2014 going into 2015. I think because of the fact that, oh wait, I'm like a year and a half ahead, I decided to just rename those as seasons 3 and 4 at the time when I was doing it. In fact, if I were to go to my YouTube channel, I still have the very last race of the Anthro Racing Series on YouTube. Fucking 70, almost 8 years ago. amazing how much time flies. So, there's a reason why I had uploaded that video. And the reason why I uploaded that video specifically was because that was the 21st race of that season out of a scheduled 36. That was the 4th season that I was doing of the Anthro Racing Series. A season that has been completely wiped from the history of the NSCA at this point because I decided to bring back the Navrar name, and I want to say it was 2016 in real life when I was doing that. And I wanted to do a more proper offline league. Except, well, how was I going to go about it? Well, I still had, fictional characters. By this point, I had brought in characters from other webcomics as well, although those were greatly reduced just as quickly as they came in. I still had a whole bunch of the or a whole bunch of characters from Twokinds. I still had a whole bunch of original characters thrown in the mix as well as field fillers. And the amount of people that I had from the NR2003 community had also expanded. And by this point, I think all 3 or 4 of the Twokinds forum drivers had also kind of been quietly removed from the car set. I think the last car set, I know one of them definitely was only in season 1. I think the other 2 or 3 were in the car set for like only 2 or 3 more seasons. Anyways, but so going back into the Navrar stuff, I got a proper title sponsor in DeviantArt. Why DeviantArt? Because I was young and dumb. And also, I think because I was kind of big into going to DeviantArt at the time. And they had just done a rebrand the year before, and I kind of like the color scheme is similar to, but also different from what NASCAR is doing in real life. I don't know. You'd have to ask 27 or 2016 me rather, what I was doing at that time. I had just turned 20 years old. For context, I'm turning 27 in less than a month. God damn, I'm turning 27 in less than a month. Holy fucking shit. I'm old. I've been doing stuff for NR 2003 for almost half my life. Don't waste your time like I have, kids. Life lesson by Jacob Grinko. Anyways, so joking about that aside, so I did a season for Navrar and whatnot. I got what, like 14 races up? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 races. From what I initially started calling season 1 at the time, uploaded to YouTube and whatnot. And the only reason why it was 15 of the 26 that I had initially, or not, I 15 of the 26 that I wound up doing, but I originally had scheduled 36 that year. The reason why I cut the season short, and the only reason why I'm missing 11 of the races, was because I was having technical difficulties. Fraps wasn't wanting to record the races properly. I was having desync issues between audio and visual. Or audio and video, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes files would get corrupted. It wasn't the greatest at times. But at the same time, it could have been worse, I guess. Could have been, just sitting on my ass with my thumb up my ass. But I wasn't doing that. And after that season was over, I said I'd just carry on, do another season. And that's what I initially did for 6 or 7 races, something like that. Let's see, I did 2 exhibition events plus. So yeah, 7 races. So only 6 of them are YouTube for some strange reason. I might have been having issues with race 3, which might have been the reason why I kind of didn't want to use Fraps anymore. But alas, Fraps is the only thing that would work on my older PC. Keep in mind, this is still 2017 when 2016, 2017, somewhere around there, when all this was happening. I didn't quite have my newer PC yet. That would come in December of 2017. So I'm going about this, and I had an epiphany about the name of the league. Why would, in any sense of logic, would a racing series that is that should not even be logically aware that it is taking place in a simulation have a virtual reality aspect in its name? Literally, it's called the National Association of Virtual Reality Auto Racing. Why would any series have that unless it was specifically like an online league or something like that? So that's when the current name of the league, NSCA, National Stock Car Association, came about. And because I was only 5 points races, I should say, into the second season I was doing, I said, fuck it. Let's go ahead and do all the changes I made right then and there. Cut the season out of existence and just move on to restart the season from the start. Hell, I even changed a few of the race logos by the looks of things. I was also able to kind of mitigate as many of the issues that I had with Fraps as possible. Although that was not exactly easy going, I still had issues. So we go along, we go ahead and get videos made and whatnot. And then, about halfway through the season, I'm able to finally get a new PC. The one I'm still currently using to this day. And it's starting to show its age, unfortunately. And I don't exactly have the money to replace it or any of the parts that would need to be replaced. But I mean, it still works just fine, so I'm not necessarily worried about that. So yeah, I got the new PC and was finally able to use OBS, which is the program I'm currently using to record this. Actually, if you can see with me, switching back and forth right now between the two scenes that I have set up, one for the webcam and one for desktop capture with the webcam in the corner. So yeah, that was nice to do. I was also able to get races be able to be built a little bit better, but unfortunately, I kind of lost access to being able to have the intro for the races because Windows Movie Maker didn't want to use the MP4 files that OBS was creating, which was kind of sad. And fortunately for me, Adobe Premiere Pro 2.0 also does not like MP4 files. So that was a bust as well. So I just uploaded the raw video files to YouTube. But even at the end of the day, I was still able to get all 36 races uploaded to YouTube for that second NSCA Twokinds Cup Series season. And that's when the bullshit started. For you see, I had started the 2019 season, or season 3, I think I had called it initially. I only got how many races in? I got only 9 races in to that season before I had to stop posting races. 10, or 11 rather, if you count the All-Star race, all 5 parts of the All-Star race that I posted, plus the exhibition clash at the start, because I was having issues with the game crashing. I don't know if it was OBS specifically, or if it was just the graphics stuff involving the tracks. At the time, I didn't have the 4 gigabyte patch, if I recall correctly. I don't even think the 4 gigabyte patch was discovered yet, to give you context. And YouTube only says it was 3 years ago. It's probably closer to 4, but yeah, it's crazy. But because I was having technical difficulties for once, not necessarily related to the recording software at the time, I said, fuck it, I'm just going to go ahead and just do the rest of the season off camera. And, well, that's what I did. Full season, more or less, completed. Back in effectively the same way it used to be. So going back to the Anthro Racing Series for a second, what I used to do there was I actually used to participate in the races. I would get a controller. I would actually participate in the race as myself. And then come hell or high water, I would either win a race or wreck trying, or finish multiple laps down because I got caught up in trouble or something like that. And that last 2 parts there were I would either wreck trying or get caught up in trouble, or I just wouldn't have a great race. Well, it happens more often than you think. I think the most wins I had in the season was 5, and that was the first season I ran when I was still, figuring things out and whatnot. I wouldn't say I'm a bad driver per se. I'm not the greatest. Definitely really slow, but then again, I'm also using a controller, not a wheel and pedal set. But I digress. Anyways, so I would do that, but aside from when I did the very last Anthro Racing Series race, I didn't really participate in the races. Or let me rephrase that. That was the only Anthro Racing Series race really where I didn't participate in it at all. I just let an AI version of myself race around. And that kind of was the trend moving forward. I wouldn't participate in a race. I would commentate it like anybody else that recorded a race. It was all AI from then on out. And 2019 was the same way, even with it being off camera. But then we had 2020 come around. And I made a few changes. First of all, as you could see from the thumbnail of the video, I decided to make YouTube the title sponsor of the series. Why? Well, I mean, I've kind of started disassociating myself with DeviantArt and whatnot, in kind of similar manner to how NASCAR started disassociating themselves with Winston after the conclusion of the 2003 season, heading into 2004, when Nextel took over and whatnot. But that was NASCAR's reason was more due to the tobacco sponsorship laws in real life. Mine was just because DeviantArt kind of turned into cringe and kind of turned into a cesspool over time. Over time being really starting in 2016. So in 2020, I finally moved away from DeviantArt as the title sponsor, and YouTube became the title sponsor, with the full intent of me starting to upload races again to my channel while recording them and whatnot for the league starting in 2020. Literally one row up. I don't keep on going back and forth. And these are the last 4 videos I posted. 1 month ago for the oldest, and then 2 years ago to the trailer. Really, almost, well, actually, 2.5 years ago, I would say. Was September 6 months ago? I don't know. Anyways, I know I released it September 9th of 2020. Why that late into the season? Yeah, I had no fucking idea. I mean, probably due to the world uh, pandemic going on at the time, getting uh, having that as a distraction from doing the league stuff, having to deal with work and whatnot. I don't know. It was 3 years ago, man. I don't fucking know. God damn, that was 3 years ago. I know I've said it multiple times now, but goddamn, time flies. Anyways, so where was I? Oh yeah, 2020. So, despite wanting to do the races and recording them, I said, fuck it. I'm just going to go ahead and do what I was doing for the back, basically 3 quarters of 2019, and just do everything off camera. Obviously, post the results and point standings on a race by race update basis to the Discord server I had at the time. And I don't know why I say at the time, I still do have it, so run it and whatnot. Which, by the way, I kind of backtracking here. I actually started that up in January 2018 to replace the as the outgoing Facebook group chat message that NR2003 leagues were very popular with doing at the time. That everybody kind of moved away from for Discord. I kind of just naturally progressed along with all that as well. So we had that happen. So going back to 2020, did everything off camera and whatnot. Figured, okay, 2021. Let's try. Okay, I did everything off camera again, and I was really trying to do it because I actually have a few videos that are unlisted on the channel for attempts at doing a Formula One style starting grid. Thanks to a starting grid template by Matt Amies, I believe he pronounced his last name. I could be wrong about that. He would probably have to correct me on that. Um, and the reason why I did that was because, well, having relatively recently gotten into Formula One as of back in, like, say, 2018, recently, thanks to the Formula One games, I kind of wanted to kind of emulate that style of broadcast where you have obviously the intro sequence, which is fucking amazing, by the way. Kind of been emulating that for years now, and then having David Croft having the whole introduction to the event and whatnot, do the track thing, do the track map and whatnot, and then you go into the starting grid and whatnot, and then you just go into the race proper, starting with the formation and whatnot. I kind of want to emulate that for the broadcast for the NSCA going forward with the YouTube era, especially considering the fact that Formula One and the NSCA were now both using uh, red as a not necessarily main color, but also not an accent color as well. Uh, and whatnot for the top tier series, which, well, Formula One, it kind of is the only series in itself because it's Formula One, so it is the series. Whatever. I'm not going off a script, as you probably tell. Um, but in 2022, despite once again making a starting grid, Formula One style starting grid, I just said fuck it. It's like, okay, that's the only thing I'm gonna do for video wise for 2022. I'm not even gonna bother trying to do videos of the races. I'm just gonna go straight through and do what I've been doing. I didn't even make a trailer last year for the Carset, which kind of has been like I wouldn't say a tradition because I've only done it twice, but I did it 2 years apart. Because again, you go back to this. I have the 2020 trailer, but if we scroll all the way down to here, I have the original trailer that was made 2 years prior. So, 2022 is like, well, do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? Oh, look, I no longer have access to Adobe Premiere Pro, 2022 edition at the time, because of the fact that I decided to cancel my Adobe subscription because at the time I was having financial issues that I was still trying to resolve. So I tried to cut off as much fat as needed. So don't all. That's the main reason why I haven't not necessarily been posting as many videos as I've been wanting to as well. Also, the reason why I have not done the 2023 starting grid template yet, which also doesn't help with the fact that I also don't have the full complete 2023 car set done for the NSCA yet. Which, speaking of which, 2022 for the NSCA YouTube Cup Series. It was the first time since I started doing any car sets and any year release season stuff that I moved away from the Bullring mods. BR 2010, both wings and spoilered versions. BR 2011, I skipped BR 12. Bullring Gen6 2013, Bullring Gen6 2015. Those four mods were basically what I used. They were relatively light on resources for Enter 2000 or for what Enter 2003 required. The templates weren't super detailed, so you didn't have a hard time trying to figure out where everything went and whatnot, and you could paint them relatively easily. The Bullring mods had a fuck ton of support, especially the Gen 6 mods with as long as they lasted. And in terms of painting supplies, whether it be bases, templates, that kind of stuff, and whatnot. So, and yeah, admittedly, I do still use bases and whatnot, even today and whatnot. But I've gotten better about making my own stuff. So, but that's off topic. I'm talking about the league history. But 2022 was the first year that I moved away from the Bullring mods. And the reason I did it was so I could was for a selfish reason. It was so I could get more downloads for the car sets so more people can enjoy it. Because at the time of 2022, the 2015 mod was at that point already 7 years old. Not a lot of people were using it outside of because the Men CS 19, 18, and 17 mods were effectively like the old DMR mods that competed against the Bullring mods. They were highly detailed, highly resource intensive mods that users on lower end PCs might not have been able to run as well or if at all. But a majority of the user base were still using them. So I figured with it being, the newer mod, I go ahead and post it. In hindsight, I probably should have used the next gen mod, knowing full well that the next gen mod works on my PC, especially with the 1.1 update and whatnot, and I would have definitely had the resources needed for it now, but I held off from the next gen mod because I wasn't sure how it was going to run on my PC. I wasn't sure how many people were going to be using it. I wasn't sure whether or not I should use it and whatnot. So I went with the Mencius 19 mod as a, kind of safety net type thing. It was still until the 22 mod was released, it was the latest Cup Series mod at the time, so it was still gaining a lot of use. In fact, a lot of people were already making Gen 7 cars on that mod, much like how people were making 2017 cars on the 2015 mod still, and even 2018 cars on the 2015 mod for real life NASCAR, not just my series. In terms of me making 2018 and 2019 cars with that, and all the way up to 2021. Holy shit! So yeah, there was that. Um, but in 2023, I'm using the next gen mod, the Generation 7 NASCAR Cup car. Now, I'm not using the Camry model, I'm using the generic Camaro and Mustang models, but that's beside the point. But yeah, that's basically a history of the NSCA and where its roots actually start, as opposed to where they probably should have started. There's a few names popping up in the NSCA, both in the 2023 Carset as well as a couple of the historic drivers and whatnot, that were names that I used for fictional drivers in the old Navara Carsets from the Verizon Cup Series days. So I am kind of throwing back to that. But yeah, that's basically the history of the NSCA from when it was originally the Twokinds Carset to how it became the Anthro Racing Series to how it became the Navara DeviantArt Cup Series slash NSCA DeviantArt Cup Series to the YouTube Cup Series to now the Fastenal Cup Series. And I'm still hoping to be able to post races. In fact, me doing the whole ticker tests and whatnot gives me hope where I can actually start doing races again on YouTube and actually posting them on a more full-time basis. But it's still to be determined. I haven't not made a decision on it one way or another. So, but anyways, I think I ran about long enough. Goddamn, 37 minutes. Wow. Anyways, thank you for, I guess, letting me ramble. Well, I mean, no one really let me ramble. I just decided to record myself rambling about the history of my league because I found out it was 10 years ago that I started doing it. Or not found out. I knew it was 10 years ago. I just didn't know the exact date. I found out what the exact date was. But yeah, thank you for listening to me ramble about the history of the league. And well, I'll see you in the next video. So long.